Hello there, it's noon on a Wednesday. I'm Jessy Chahal. You're watching The Brief. Now, in just a bit, I'll be speaking to Xiang, founder of MEN Sdn, to talk about property outlook that for the third quarter of this year, indeed, time has flown in 2022, and we take a peek into what the property market has in store for the rest of the year. Now, just before that, though, crisis management analyst Nordin Abdullah, he speaks to me about halal exports and 5G farming technology to secure nation's food security issue. That's something else that we've been talking at length about right here on The Brief. Now, let's begin the news in brief with an update from the Dewan Rakyat. Now, the tabling of the Constitution Amendment Bill number 3, 2022, and the provision for the prohibition of MPs from party hopping will be the focus of the Dewan Rakyat today. Now, the bill is expected to be presented by the Prime Minister himself, Dato Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob. Engagement sessions for the presentation of the bill with the government and opposition MPs were held on Monday and Tuesday before the tabling and the debate for today. Now, the current Dewan Rakyat sitting has been scheduled for 12 days and it's still ongoing right up till August 4th. And in other news, China's state-owned companies will collaborate with Malaysian firms as well as the Malaysian Palm Oil Board to produce oil palm-based products involving 6 billion ringgit in FDIs or foreign direct investment. Now, according to the Prime Minister, again, the products are a hydro-treated vegetable oil and sustainable aviation fuels. And meanwhile, but still with the Prime Minister, Malaysia is capable of becoming a biomass hub through the development of a circular economy in line with the country's status as the world's second largest exporter of palm oil and the largest contributor of the biomass industry. Ismail Sabri points out that the development of the circular economy focus should also be given towards using raw materials from waste or even access in the chain of the agri-commodity sector. Lots of movements around there, and of course what's trending locally as well. But separately, the government has agreed to maintain the water tariff for the domestic category, which is basically Peninsula and the Federal Territory of Labuan, in view of the increase in cost of living currently faced by the Rakyat. It follows the Cabinet's meeting's agreement with the use of the tariff setting mechanism or TSM instrument in reorganizing the management of the country's water supply. And the Minister of Agriculture and Food Industries, or MAFI, has given its assurance that Malaysia's rice supply is stable and there is enough to meet the needs of the people despite the various threats faced by its paddy and rice industry, including the effects of climate change as well. There's an extensive piece just on this. Please visit bernama.com to get a peek or have a read on this issue. Well, it's time for me now to rope in our very keen analyst Nordin Abdullah for his observations and coverage on trending issues here in the country. Nordin, good to see you today. We're doing it slightly differently via online, but as they say, the show must go on. So firstly, the Deputy International Trade and Industry Minister, Dato' Lim Ban Hong, says the halal sector is expected to hit an export target of 40 billion ringgit this year. That's a huge sum, and the targeted export value is achievable, he says, through the efforts placed by the ministry and the HDC, or the Halal Development Corporation, including 13 other agencies. And local halal products, Nordin, have huge demands in countries like China, and Singapore, Japan, the United States, and Indonesia. How are you perceiving all of this?
Well, I think this is an excellent development. Of course, HDC was started during Pak Lah's time, and the objective of the Halal Development Corporation was to kind of integrate the halal industry. And during that time also, it was to address what was then a $10 billion food import bill. Of course, that food import bill has increased to almost 15 billion now. But the fact that now we are looking at exporting and increasing exports of value-added Malaysian halal products, then we're going to be able to bring back that trade deficit in a meaningful way that also develops local industry, local jobs, And of course, we've seen recent numbers out of the Halal Development Corporation together with their friends at MIDA in terms of increasing investment into the halal production sector. So it is definitely a growth sector. It's something Malaysia has always taken a lead on. And it's now up to us to continue to take a lead on that because we're dealing with a global food crisis.
But absolutely, but this also would mean that Malaysia's presence in the global halal sector will also be more prominent. Will HDC also then look to boost numbers in terms of export certified halal corporations, Nordin?
Well, that's the wonderful thing. There was an interesting study done recently. There's actually several thousand companies that are eligible, one, to be further certified, and two, to increase the export exposure. So what we need to do now is look at what is achievable in the domestic market and ensure we hit those self-sufficiency numbers, but really start to look at where we're going to export. Singapore is a large market. China is a large market. The rest of ASEAN is begging for more halal food. So we just need to ramp up our game, especially now, knowing that there's a premium on halal and a premium on food security and suppliers that can be sustainable as well as halal. So it's something that we're seeing this convergence of quality assurance in the global markets, and halal is of course a part of that.
That's right, a huge window of opportunity as well in terms of addressing food security or providing a solution to a certain extent. Well, still on the issue of food security, let's move on to what the Prime Minister said. He said a modern agriculture strategy focusing on 5G technology is being drafted currently by the Iskandar Regional Development Authority, or IRDA. This is to strengthen the country's food security agenda even further now. 5G technology is to be the main support component in modern agriculture sector within the Iskandar Malaysia area. This development will be expedited to tackle food supply issues as well. Nordin, what is this bringing to the table for us?
Well, Jessy, 5G and especially what it can do in terms of modern agro-tech is where we need to go. We need to not just be able to grow the food here in Malaysia, we need to be able to integrate it into global supply chains. And for that, we need to get what's called this traceability from farm to fork, and then this full life cycle of products. With that, you need this traceability. It can only be achieved in a real-time setting with high amounts of data, and 5G is going to be able to do that. So when we look at being able to integrate into global supply chains in Europe that end up in Europe, global supply chains that end up in the US, we have to be able to give the traceability data to those corporations that distribute these products. So in terms of being resilient and in terms of being agriculturally ahead of our competitors within the region, we need to actually increase our data capacity to actually compete. So it's good to see IRDA taking the lead. It's good to see the Prime Minister pushing this agenda. This is the global food supply chain, and this is where the gaps are. And if we can address those gaps, we will be that nation of choice in terms of resilience and in terms of looking at a place to invest.
That's right. Well, just taking this a step further, though, if we see the success of 5G being applied in this sector or industry, where else then do you see this cascading to in terms of this technology being applied in other very core sectors for the country's trade and development, Nordin?
Well, everything is becoming about data. Everything's becoming about just-in-time delivery. Everything is now also looking at this new concept that we're looking at in terms of friendshoring. But to be able to do that in a highly competitive, highly data-driven environment, without 5G, it's almost impossible. So actually, the trend, not just for farmers, but for all value adders throughout the value chain and the supply chain, even when we look at managing the cold chain, we need to be able to manage the data of the temperature of the cold rooms of the different products in a way that is highly sophisticated to ensure that the product remains fresh all the way to the consumers at the end market. So if you can't do that, it's very difficult to sell products at a high value.
So it will become, of course, a necessity and the go-to standard in the near future. Noreen, thanks for checking in, and we will be reaching out to you again to get more updates on current trending topics. That was Noreen Abdullah, Crisis Management Analyst. Well, it's now time to take you to our Business in Brief segment, where we give you updates on business in and around the country. Firstly, according to an analyst, the ringgit opened higher against the US dollar today amidst renewed buying interest for the domestic unit. Today, $1 is 4 ringgit 45 cent. Onto the stock market, according to a dealer, Bursa Malaysia opened marginally higher but declined within minutes of trading, reflecting investors' concerns about a potential interest hike or interest rate hike by the United States Federal Reserve, or easily referred to as the Fed, during its meeting later today. Now at 9:15 a.m. this morning, the FBM KLCI fell 2.51 points to 1461.18 from Tuesday's close of 1463.69. And briefly, if you're on the market for gold today is 238 ringgit 24 cent per gram. It's down 62 cent from yesterday. And in other news, short-term rates are expected to remain stable today on Bank Negara Malaysia's operations to absorb surplus liquidity from the financial system. Liquidity is estimated at 41.04 billion ringgit in the conventional system and 28.96 billion ringgit in Islamic funds. And moving on to international business, Zimbabwe's central bank has now launched gold coins as a store of value to tame runaway inflation, which has considerably weakened the local currency. Its central bank governor says the coins are available for sale in local currency, in US dollars, and in other foreign currencies as well. The Mosi Otunia coin, named after the iconic Victoria Falls, can be converted into cash and be traded locally and even internationally. Gold coins are used by investors all over the world to hedge against inflation and war. Well, in my feature today, we take a look at the property sector, what's happening, what's trending. And for my conversation today, I'm joined by the founder of MEN Sdn Berhad, CHAO. Welcome to the program and thank you for being with us. Let's take a quick look at the property sector's performance in the first half of this year. And how do you see the industry doing for the remaining of the year?
Yeah, hi. Compared to last year, we can see the performance of Malaysia property market is in recovering stage, as improved compared to last year because of the ease of lockdown and resumptions of economic sectors. And furthermore, now we can see COVID-19 the infections rates remains at a manageable level. So for the next half year, we are expecting property market will rebound. As we can see international border as already reopening, and this improve our domestic economy and activity. And recently, we can see government has come up with a lot of policy to boost our property market, included the waiver of RPGT, and especially the recent one, the announcement of the waiver of the MOT stamp duty for the first house buyer with 100% waiver for property below 500,000. And also for property from 500 to 1 million, they are giving 50% waiver for MOT.
Okay, so while we have all that still in place, there seems to be sort of a notion or a perception that there will be tougher times in the second half of this year. How do you see this?
Yeah, I can say that if let's say we see in a tougher time, we cannot conclude in the whole area of Malaysia, but in KL, the urban area, we can see it still can be rebound. But then for sub-urban area, will be tough, because when we say of the property, we have to see on their household income, but then with government policy, and they are giving booster to our property market, so then I can see there will be a rebound in urban area like KL area.
Okay, let's look at what Bank Negara is doing recently. It rose 25 basis points in the OPR, which is the overnight policy rate. Now, what kind of impact will this have in the property market?
Yeah, as we know, a higher OPR means that the borrowing cost will be higher, and of course, the higher monthly installment repayment. So this one will be tightened on the loan approval and the DSR calculation. So, uh, I can say if let's say the increase of OPR, it won't affect much on the property below 500,000, especially for first home buyer, because the OPR of the rules of 25% is mean that it will be paying extra, will be 150 to 200 ringgit per month. So for first home buyer, if let's say they are keen to buy the house, they are still willing to pay. But of course, for property, they are over million ringgit. The OPR, the rules of OPR will definitely affect them, and will be the property will be slowed down a bit. So for this one, we hope the MM2H will be reinstated to let in more foreigner to digest for the higher property price property. Yeah.
All right. So, does the global economy have a direct impact on local property pricing? And also, I guess, has the current labor shortage and price hike in construction materials affected property pricing as well? Because we kind of see a bit of extremes here. We see properties that are perhaps very highly priced, and then we see properties in sort of the lower bracket, which seem affordable. But is there any compromise in terms of construction materials, and how does this all sort of come into play, Michelle?
Yeah, for now, we can see the global market has rise the price of goods, and also the property, the material of property. However, as we see in new launch project, a lot of developer, they're still absorbing the cost. So then they are still giving a lot of packaging to let the people to buy the house. Of course, in this part, we can see the economy, the cost of living is increasing. So, but the house price are still manageable, and in we can see there's a lot of affordable home they provide by government. So yes, for the transactor of building will be slowing down, but we hope that the we I mean the demand of housing is dependent on our income. So if let's say even those there are the cost is higher, but then there's still a lot of developer, they are absorbing the cost. They're still giving a lot of rebate. Mm, yeah.
Right. Okay. So, do you think then, personally, that this is the right time for buyers to own a new house, whether they're first-time buyers or for somebody wanting to, switch their property and from maybe renting going to buy a new house? What is your advice for prospective buyers for the remaining of the year, Michelle?
I can say it's safe to, this is a good time to leverage on the opportunity for buyer to get into the market. But then, because there are some good location, and for pre-launching project, that there are still a bright room for future capital gains. And then there are rebate given by developer, and also in sub-sale market, there are still a lot of below market, below property market. The below market value property available in the market, where I think for consumer they have to really look into it and make a lot of research before get into the market. As now the upward of the in economic trend, I think they really have to commit and consider and look at their stability of personal income. So yeah, I think it's a great time to make a purchase. Yeah.
All right, there you have it. Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing your insights and outlook of the property market for the remaining of the year. We'll speak to you soon. Well, here are some international, or rather some local updates from the Parliament. What we've just received is that constitutional amendment to ban defections aimed at ensuring political stability, preventing continuous political crisis, the Prime Minister and the government view seriously party hopping that causes polemics among the public, and also 4 new clauses included in constitutional amendment relating to anti-party hopping. So we've got some progress there as well. And also we're looking at a clear message for elected reps to uphold party principles, respect mandate given by the people, statement made by the Prime Minister earlier today. Well, from that, let me take you into the international segment today, where I take you around the globe. Now, in international news, let's begin with this. The Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, in a meeting with the Greek Prime Minister yesterday, said Greece and Saudi Arabia will sign a deal in renewable energy and discuss other investments, including security. Prince Mohammed's visit to Greece is his first to a member state of the European Union since the 2018 killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And moving on, Russia's new space chief signaled his country's intent to withdraw from the ISS, or the International Space Station, after the year 2024. Roscosmos also posted an image of the proposed Russian space station, which is planned to be called Ros. Now, NASA and Roscosmos have been in talks to extend Russia's participation on the space station to 2030. And the White House earlier this year approved NASA's plans to continue running the orbital laboratory until then. And IMF cut global growth forecasts again yesterday, warning that downside risk from high inflation and the Ukraine war were materializing and could push the world economy to the brink of recession if left unchecked. IMF said in an update of its world economic outlook, global real GDP growth will slow to 3.2% this year from a forecast of 3.6% issued in April. It's also added that the world GDP actually contracted in the second quarter due to downturns in China and Russia. Well, the fund cut its 2023 growth forecast to 2.9% from the April estimated amount of 3.6%, citing the impact of tighter monetary policy. And in Myanmar, hundreds of people protested outside the Myanmar embassy in Bangkok against the ruling military's execution of 4 democracy activists as international outrage and condemnation grew. Now, large crowds of demonstrators chanted slogans and called for justice while holding portraits of the executed activists and deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Not far away from that, in Thailand, from cannabis-infused dessert, bubble tea to even toothpaste, businesses in Thailand are cashing in on a consumer frenzy for all things marijuana following a recent easing on laws. In 2018, Thailand became the first Southeast Asian country to legalize marijuana for medical use and for research. Now, Thailand is banking on developing cannabis as a cash crop and building a lucrative local industry. Health Minister, who is the main driver behind the policy, estimates Thailand's cannabis industry to be valued at over $3 billion in the next 5 years. And in soccer, FIFA says 3/4 of the teams at the World Cup finals in Qatar will be based within a 10-kilometer radius of each other, announcing the hotels and training venues for the 32 national sides. Unlike in previous tournaments, all teams will now stay in the same hotel and use the same training base throughout the tournament, even carrying out their sessions the day before matches at their camps rather than at the stadiums. And as usual here on The Brief, we like to bring you the update of what's trending all over the world. And we take to Twitter to look at some trending topics. #Philippines is trending, but not for a good reason. A powerful 7.1 magnitude earthquake struck the Philippine island of Luzon today. And according to the U.S. Geological Survey, the earthquake damaged a hospital and buildings in the northern province. And it's also sending strong tremors through the capital of Manila. Now, there were no immediate reports of serious injuries or any deaths from the quake as of now. We'll bring you more updates on that as this story develops as well. In the meantime, all of us here hope that everyone in the Philippines, especially on Luzon Island, are safe. Well, that's all the time I have right now on the brief. Come back tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll be here to bring you more updates locally and, of course, from across the globe. I'm Jessy Chahal. This has been Wednesday's edition of the brief. Thanks for watching.